So, it's been quite a while since I last made a video. Last one was vaccines. I hope you all enjoyed it who watched it. Got some great feedback actually. And I never rush things when it comes to anything because there's no point. They're going to happen when they're going to happen, when they're ready to happen. So now I know that this video has to be about lockdowns and why they don't work, in my opinion. But, if you've watched all my other videos, I think my opinion is valuable. So this first part is going to be kind of boring, but essential because it's going to be definitions. Because we can't have intelligent discourse without agreeing on what certain words mean. So I'm going to define a number of terms here, and then we can move on to talk about some math and to talk about some immunological things and to answer or to provide evidence to support my claim that lockdowns don't work and why they don't work. That's the most important thing. You can never say that something doesn't work without providing an alternative solution, because in the former case, you're just bitching, and in the latter case, it's proactive and it's productive. So I might be looking down and reading a little bit, and I'm sorry for that, but I don't want to get this wrong. First of all, I've noticed in the interweb world, a lot of people from all over the world are essentially begging for a lockdown. And I find this really bizarre, personally. And I started to notice that the people who were begging for it didn't understand the true nature of it. So this is what a lockdown is, okay? A lockdown refers to an emergency situation when it is safer to be inside your building, room, or area. People are not allowed to leave their building or area or move freely. People are not allowed to move freely. Keep that in mind, okay? Because we're bipedal physical beings. Now, a lot of people, I think, from what I'm seeing on the interweb, is that there's a confusion between isolating and lockdown, okay? So isolation is this. It's a precaution that's taken, usually in a hospital setting. This is, most people, they may not have heard the word isolation used in the context of, out of doors or in a community setting. It's primarily a word that you use in... something in my teeth. It's nuts. In a hospital setting, like an isolation ward or an isolation room. I switched my mug. Did you notice? It says, "I hate lockdowns" on the other side. Sorry. It's a precaution taken in a hospital, typically, to prevent the spread of an infectious agent for an infected or colonized patient, to prevent the spread to susceptible people. Okay? Different vantage point. So isolation involves sickies. If you're sick, you separate them from the healthies. Now this is different from quarantine. I'm sure you've all been seeing the words isolation and quarantine and lockdown being thrown around. These are different things. They're all connected, but they're different. So a quarantine is a restriction of the movement of people and goods intended to prevent the spread of disease or pests. So a quarantine is just stay where you are. And quarantine involves healthies who might have been exposed for a certain amount of time to see if they get sick within that certain amount of time. Here's my cat. Hi. He's watching his mommy make videos. If you bring an animal from a country to another country, say a country that has rabies to a country that does not, well, first of all, you have to get your animal vaccinated against rabies, and when you arrive at your destination country, your animal has to go into quarantine for a certain amount of time. It's usually a month, which means they have to be in a contained in a space. Moving right along, what is social distancing? I'm sure you've all heard of this. And I'm going to lump the definition in with geographic or physical distancing because I think they're one and the same. Many people might think that social distancing means not socializing, and it does, but it's more about not being in proximity, physical proximity with someone or people. And there is a distance associated with that. It varies. I've seen 1.5 meters and I've seen 2. I'd go with the higher number. So social distancing is a set of non-pharmaceutical, which for the younger crowd means, it's not made in a lab type thing, drug, interventions or measures taken to prevent the spread of a contagious disease by maintaining physical distance between people and reducing the number of times that people come into close contact with each other. This is essential. It's distance and reduction of the number of times. You want to eliminate contact, basically. Now, you're probably seeing a trend here because I won't get into this yet because I'm still going through my definitions, but if you're on the same mind track as me, the things that I've talked about up to now are kind of ways in order to have this physical distancing occur. Okay? Keep with that thought. Now here's another word you might have seen popping up in an article here and there. Term. It's called herd immunity. If you've watched my other videos, and I'm giving myself a plug right now, you'll know what immunity means. But I'll get to that. I'm going to go with herd immunity first. So, herd immunity is a form of indirect protection from infectious diseases that occurs when a large percentage of a population, and for this virus in particular, the estimate is 60%, has become immune to an infection, providing a measure of protection for individuals who are not immune. And essentially what herd immunity does is once this percentage of the population is immune, the chain of infection is broken. That's an ideal situation with a pathogen. You want it to burn through the community. If there are vulnerable people, isolate them, get the herd immunity going. The majority of people are immune, and therefore they can't pass the virus on to others. So I'm going to say something small about immunity. What is immunity? What does it mean? And again, go to my other video about this. It's a balanced state of multicellular organisms, which are organisms with many cells, multicellular, having adequate biological defenses to fight infection. And one of these is called acquired immunity. You acquire the immunity by being introduced to a pathogen. And a type of acquired immunity is the humoral immune response in which antibodies are generated. And again, this is all in one of my other videos. Antibodies are produced as an acquired immune response to the presence of a pathogen, and what's left are circulating antibodies. They remove pathogens from your body. The infection is cleared, the pathogen is cleared, and you are left with memory cells that can remember, I won't get into names, that can generate these antibodies very quickly upon detection of this pathogen again, which is why you don't get sick the second time. You are immune. Second, third, fourth, whatever time. So, if you've been paying attention, a lockdown is a way to achieve isolation. We're not locked down with each other. Quarantine. So that you're talking about sickies and healthy people who might have been exposed. Social distancing, for sure. And, physical distancing more or less. I mean, if you have many rooms in your home, then you can, each person can take a room type thing. And if you have your own bathroom. It might seem obvious to everyone now, after I said that this is, this is the best thing to do because you can achieve all these things. However, when you consider the fact that two things. One, it kind of forces people in a way who are sick to be in close quarters with non-sick people. Everybody heard about the boats, right? And the biggest question here is, because I'm not sure you noticed yet, but the fulcrum of relevance here, wow, the fulcrum of relevance, it's a good name for a band, is physical distancing. If you can achieve physical distancing, the game is won. Checkmate, virus. You do not need a full lockdown in order to achieve physical distancing, theoretically. However, the converse is not true. You cannot have lockdown without imposing things like physical distancing and restrictions on movement that, for example, might be very detrimental to people who aren't sick, for example. I'm going to throw this in right now. I said I was, going to raise a solution, and I have one. I think a partial lockdown is a much better idea. Not a full lockdown, and maybe I should have, used the term full lockdown is a bad idea. In which the high-risk susceptible people of our population, which have been identified so far as the elderly, the immunocompromised, and perhaps people taking hypertension medicine, they absolutely can be locked down, i.e. separated, quarantined from the rest of the population. What would happen then is that the rest of the population would go about freely without interacting with the high-risk susceptibles. This would be essential. And because 60-something% of us need to get infected in order for herd immunity to be established, and over 60% of us go through the infection asymptomatically, like we don't even know that we had it type thing, and establish antibodies, then we wouldn't be facing many problems that we're not going to be able to bounce back from. Problems like suicide, problems like depression, problems like not being able to come back after getting used to being isolated and I mean isolated. I don't mean solitude, I mean isolated. I mean I don't care about the economy myself. I should, that's a stupid thing to say, but it wouldn't go into a devastating crash. There are so many things, so many factors that need to be considered here, and the solution cannot be this black and white lockdown thing. It cannot. This it's too complex. Even by country, it's too complex. It has to be, the actions, the measures taken have to be assessed based on a country per country basis, I think. And it has to be based on the numbers or the people in the susceptibles population, which is all of us, that are high risk, that are low risk, etc., etc., etc. And it has to move from there. There has to be intelligent thought put into this. It's a better solution. It's going to have a much more constructive and productive outcome. Another thing that concerns me is that since we are all either willingly or unwillingly on a mandatory lockdown, like full lockdown in some places like where I live, there's no way for me, for example, if I haven't already run the course of this infection, to get it. Because I'm not interacting with people. I'm not saying I want to go out and get it. I'm just saying I'm not in a high-risk category. It probably, I don't know, but it probably wouldn't affect me so badly. I might have even had it already. I have no idea. There's no way for us to know, except with an antibody test. But I can't generate antibodies against this without natural exposure. In this situation. So what bothers me about that is that if someday when the vaccine is produced, and I think that's going to be a great day for the susceptibles population that are high risk, I would rather get the virus and run the natural course of infection and get immunity that way, personally, than have a vaccine for it, because the vaccine is achieving the same thing. This is a personal, very personal opinion. That's what I would choose. So, but again, it's coming from a bit of an arrogant place. I have no idea how this thing might affect me. It might shut me down. It might leave me begging on a bed for air. I have no idea. So I might change my tune if I have had a different path so far. But based on the path I've had up till now, I would choose natural immunity. And I'm just going to throw this in there now. Being cooped up is having a very, very negative effect on me. I'm coping, but I'm not happy at all. Not that I'm ever that happy, but I'm an athlete. I need to move my body. I mean, it's not that I want to work. It's I have to work out every day, or I go nuts. I have to get my energy out. We're not allowed to surf here. It's illegal to surf here, and for you guys who enjoy my dancing surfing photos, multiply that times 1 billion, and that's how much I enjoy surfing, and that's been taken from me. So I'm not okay with that. Not one iota of me is okay with that. So an amendment has to be made. Not just for me, not just for the issues I'm raising here, but for the global community, the mental health, the emotional health of the global community, the immune systems that crash under stress. This isn't pseudoscience. This is the immune system. What relieves stress? Physical activity. I'm saying do it alone. Keep 2 meters away from everyone. No problem. That's my 2 cents. Probably went off on a tangent there. So I'm gonna summarize now. I feel like this video's been a little disjointed because it's hitting nerves for me, as you probably noticed. Full, totalitarian lockdown, bad. Photobomb me. You wanna snuggle? Come on, Lemmy. He's my boy. He snorts. Ugh, it makes it so much easier. By the way, I've seen a lot of people, trying to promote adopting an animal, and it's a good idea. Yee! This is my spirit animal. I'm getting camera shy now. Okay, so partial lockdown, but thoughtfully, thoughtfully drawn up and thoughtfully executed is vital with the people that are going to have to live with it at the forefront of the minds of the people who are going to be deploying these partial lockdowns. As a more detailed description of what it might look like, work from home if you can. I still like this idea. Of course, grouping the susceptibles population, which is all of us, into distinct groups, perhaps by age, perhaps by gender, perhaps by even your job. Like if you're a bartender, maybe you're at higher risk because you're interacting with more people. Anyway, I haven't laid this out as a plan. It's just an idea. I absolutely think, under no circumstances, that any kind of large centers should reopen during this time. That would qualify as semi-lockdown. I don't know if I'd go. That would be up to the people who actually make up the details of the semi-lockdown to decide. Maybe it can be done on numbers. You have to be able to restrict gatherings of greater than 100 people. I don't know. And absolutely, there should be no restrictions on physical activity except for including a physical distance clause of, say, 2 meters. This would have to be respected and executed by the people. It would have to be done properly. So again, it wasn't even considered. We just moved in many, many countries directly to this full totalitarian lockdown, and it's ridiculous to me. Anyway, so I hope everyone's doing okay. This is a pretty shitty year, right? So far. He's my guy. You want to look up? Oh, here he is. There's my little teddy bear. Every time I get on now, I'm wearing something different and my head is closer to the wall. Okay, so, antibody tests. Watch my other videos about testing. They're available, and within a few days, it's been said, at least in the UK, I'm not sure about globally, they will be readily available. They're 15 minutes take home, finger prick, instant diagnosis tests, and they rely on detecting the presence of antibodies, which means you've been exposed and you are immune. I think, and I might contact the company that's producing this, that they should manufacture a kit, take home. I also think this should all be free. That comes with a little plastic bracelet, like when you go to a festival or something. And if you are immune, then you wear a green bracelet or something like that, just so that you can be identified in public in the case of a semi-lockdown, where things are still going on, as somebody who can't pass on the virus. This is a much more sensible solution than this total lockdown nonsense. This is all a reality. This isn't like what should be done. This is what can happen today. Absolutely. Each leader of each country needs to, they need to either get in contact with this company or get one that's working in their own country to start pumping out these antibody tests, because in my opinion, that's the solution. If you take the test, you have the antibodies, you are immune, you wear the bracelet. We can anticipate problems with this. We don't know how long the antibodies last, for example, but this is a good solution for the present time. Wow, he loves me. If you take a test, an antibody test, and you come back negative, then you haven't been exposed, which means that you are susceptible. And in any case, I still think it's up to the individual. Do you want to how much participation in the community do you want to partake in? I think that's up to the individual, as long as this is under the semi-lockdown conditions. The high risk people, clearly, because we are in the middle of this crisis, we need to take care of them. We need to keep them in their own special group. I'm not talking about casting them aside. The opposite. We need to put them where they belong, up high. I'm talking about the elderly now. We need to put them first. We need to, create spaces for them so that they can be protected 100%. It's going to be like the opposite of the ice pan that we have going on now. It would be like the gold throne pan. Yeah, that's about it for now. So that's the last video in my series, and now I'm making music. So I'm digging into all the stuff, which is it's great. But can only go on for so long before me and the rest of the people can't do it anymore. That's something for our leaders to consider very, very, very carefully. All right, here are some of my plans, and I bid you farewell for now.